one of the largest rent-to-own companies was recently acquired, and you probably didn't even know about it. But I'm gonna tell you about what happened and the effect that it could be having on you, and the continuing effect that I'm seeing happening in the real estate industry as well. So Divvy Homes, if you haven't heard about it, was a rent-to-own company. Basically, the business model of Divvy Homes is that people who wanted to become a homeowner, but they didn't quite qualify to purchase a home, if they qualified for Divvy Homes' program, their rent-to-own program, then Divvy Homes would actually purchase the home that a individual wanted to buy as the home that they would eventually own. That individual would rent that home from Divvy over the next 1, 2, maybe 3 years until they could afford to purchase that home from Divvy at a previously agreed upon price. So that pretty much that's the business model. Divvy Home purchased the homes that individual who qualified wanted to live in, and that individual would then rent from Divvy until they could afford to buy the home that they wanted. So that was in essence the business model. The problem was Divvy ran into a lot of issues with finances, as a lot of people do, because you did have a lot of people that Divvy bought these homes, but then the people never actually qualified to ever own these homes. They never qualified for the mortgages to purchase these homes back from Divvy. And I don't know all of the details of everything that was involved, but I do know that personally, as a mortgage loan officer, I've come across people who were currently in a rent-to-own program and still did not qualify. And they had been in that rent-to-own program for 3, 4, 5 years even. So this is some of the things that you saw going on. And obviously, Divvy ended up in a spot where financially it just wasn't a great endeavor for them to continue on. So you've got Brookfield that comes along, and Brookfield, I've got the article pulled up here, so I'll read it to you. Brookfield is a private real estate fund which acquired Divvy for about $1 billion. And Maymount Homes, which is Brookfield's single family home rental business, is going to manage the portfolio of these properties that Divvy owns. So Divvy owns properties all across the country because Divvy operated all across the country. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about what I believe is going to be happening here. And I've also peeked a little bit behind the curtain as well. So some of this has been, I guess you could say, not substantiated, but it has gotten a consensus from other individuals. So with that, what I believe is happening or is going to happen is that all of these homes that Divvy owns that have now been acquired along with Divvy by Brookfield are now no longer going to be what they were originally intended to be, which is homes that were being rented out to eventually be sold, but now they're going to be turned into rental homes permanently. It's my belief that Brookfield is not interested in this rent-to-own model, which did not, pan out the way that Divvy Homes was hoping. But they're also not interested in acquiring all these homes just for the purpose of selling a bunch of these homes. I believe they are going to acquire these homes, and then they are going to turn as many of them as they can into rental homes. So one of the things that you see happening around the country, particularly in some areas such as Atlanta, is you have a huge influx of companies and corporations buying up large amounts of real estate and then renting it, not selling it. So a lot of single family homes, Atlanta's actually the worst in the nation for it. There are 3 companies that own over 19,000 single family homes in the Atlanta metropolitan area. More than 10%, it's closer to 11% of all of the single family homes for rent are owned by 3 companies. And you've got a lot of companies that have been coming to Atlanta, particularly buying up a lot of real estate and then turning that real estate into rentals. So what is that doing? One, it is taking a large amount of the real estate that would normally be out there for individual families and individual, just people in general who would want to become a homeowner, have those homes be able to purchase so that they can be a homeowner. Essentially, they don't have that option, or that option has become a lot harder for them to achieve, because when you have big corporate investors that come in and buy up the properties, they can pay what a lot of individuals can't afford to pay. We saw this in the pandemic where interest rates got really low and a lot of corporations were just bidding up properties. You might have a home that was listed for $300,000. And if you're able to qualify for $300,000, maybe you go in at 300. Maybe you can afford to do 315, 320. You have a corporation that just comes and buys up the property for 350,000, 360,000. And you can't afford to go that high because you don't have all the excess cash that you would need to have in order to pay the down payment if that home doesn't appraise for 360, or if you don't qualify for a $360 loan. So you're starting to see the continuation of that. There's another gentleman who is very big in the apartment space, I'll say that. And he very much believes that America is becoming a renter nation, and that as time goes on, the amount of homeowners that we're going to have is going to decrease, whether that be because people are more mobile with where they want to move, whether that be because of the increase in home prices, whether it's a combination of the two or something else altogether. Homeownership just not being something as high on the radar of people as it used to be, a few decades ago. But in any case, this particular individual, he believes that, and like I said, he's very big in the apartment space. He believes that America is becoming a renter nation, and we're eventually going to be like what you see in a lot of other countries. If you go to some areas like in Europe, there are countries in large areas, metropolitan cities, where most people don't own what they live in. They rent, and that's just the norm. You rent and that's how you live your life. And America, by and large, has been one that's been driven toward the American dream of owning a home. However, with the increase in home prices, with the different moves and shifts that big corporations that have hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that they can throw toward owning up large amounts of real estate, with the shift that you've seen happening lately with that, we get into this place where we are now, where it's like, well, you know what? You're starting to see a little bit of that hypothesis start to turn a little bit true, I'll say, of America potentially becoming more of a renter nation. And so this has just been one example of other examples that have been happening just over recent years. And I mean recent, if you look at what has transpired over the last 5 years, from 2020 up through where we're now in 2025, there has been a lot, or 2019 up through where we're now in 2025, it's been a lot of real estate that has been bought up by corporations and turned into rentals. Another thing, there has also been a lot of building that has occurred. A lot of residential neighborhoods are getting built all over the country, particularly, again, in Atlanta. This is where I'm from. So because it's in my own backyard, I see it every time I leave the house. There's a lot of residential neighborhoods that are getting built up, but there's a surprising number of them that are not getting built for homes to sell, but homes to rent. There are entire subdivisions of homes that are purely built to rent out to other people. And that's something that's also becoming more of the norm, more commonly seen in different areas, is that, you'll see a whole subdivision rent, but companies are seeing it as being a more profitable endeavor because people do want to live in a single family home. Not everyone wants to live in an apartment. Not everyone's family size can be supported by the general constraints of your typical apartment. However, when you do have a lot of single family homes out there, and you've got corporations with deep pockets who can purchase up entire subdivisions and entire neighborhoods, or have entire neighborhoods built just for the purpose of renting, that then becomes something that you're seeing more common now, where, those entire subdivisions and corporations are seeing it as being a more, like I said, profitable endeavor. They're seeing it as being something that's more valuable. You get a constant cash flow, if you will, of money from renters, rather than a one-time sale a large lump sum payout and now I'm going hunting for my next deal. No, I own the property. I stay owning the property. You rent the property from me, and you're always going to rent it from me until you move out, and then I'm gonna get the next person in there to rent it out. What effect does this have on you, or on the neighborhood rather? One of the things that I think in terms of the effect that it has is that I think that the neighborhoods, the quality of the neighborhoods is decreased a little bit. And the reason I say that is because, one, and this has been proven through research as well, when you have neighborhoods where the majority of the residents are homeowners, the neighborhood tends to be, in my opinion, safer. The residents are typically more involved in the neighborhood. They're more involved in the community because they feel more a part of the community. They have ownership in the community. They own property in the community. And I believe overall, you just have a better neighborhood when those neighborhoods are owned by the residents that live in that neighborhood. However, when you get into a situation like what we've already been seeing and are continuing to see, where corporations and companies own entire neighborhoods and all the residents are just renters, some of the complaints that I've heard are that the companies and corporations don't really care as much about the communities, which, let's be honest, if you're running a company, the bottom line is always going to be something that's front and center for you, meaning what you're actually making. You have to run a profitable endeavor. You have to run a company that's making money, or you're not going to be in business very long. So I'm not going to say money is the most important thing, but for many companies, profitability is the most important thing. Some of these companies have shareholders, and they're wanting to please their shareholders because the shareholders want to make money. And so some of the complaints that I've heard, and this is just through some of the news interviews that I've watched from residents who live in some of these communities, and some of the articles that I've read also with quotes from some of the residents who live in these communities, is that they feel like there's a lack of care or concern for the property themselves. Some of the residents have experienced repairs that need to be made, but there's either a delay, or the repairs that need to be made just don't get made at all, because again, we're talking about a company that has, to be profitable, and they've got other things that are on their agenda. These companies, and a large part of the time, the people that own and run these companies don't live in the neighborhoods that they own. And therefore, these neighborhoods are just ways for them to build the company and generate wealth. Well, when you have a system and a structure set up that way, it could end up, degrading the quality of what you would get, say, if you had a neighborhood with tenants that all own the homes in the neighborhood. They all take ownership in the home that they live in. If there's a repair and you own the home, you're going to be the one to take priority in fixing that repair. If there's a pipe that's leaking, or if there's something that needs to be fixed, your HVAC system or your furnace, when you own the home, you own the problems that come along with that home, but you also take a little bit more pride in upkeeping that home, maintaining that home. But if it's a company or corporation that owns that home and it's their responsibility, one, that's not going to be something that you're going to spend money on, because that's not money that you should have to spend. You don't own the home. But it's also not necessarily going to be something that's a priority for the company or the corporation that owns the home, because they may have other things that take precedence over them, over your house getting repaired, rather than them spending $1,500, $200, or whatever it might be to fix whatever issue it is that you've got with your home. Their attention might be focused on somewhere else, because you have to think about it. Some of these corporations own over 10,000 properties. And so when you own that much real estate, you can't focus on every single problem that comes in, every single issue. What if you own over 10,000 properties and you've got hundreds of, complaints that come in on a monthly basis for little things here that need to get fixed, little things there that need to get fixed? Do you go out and take care of all of them? Or do you ignore some of them, maybe take care of a couple of the major ones that might be, code violations or whatever, and then keep it moving? You make the determination on which side you think a company or a corporation is going to err on. But in any case, that's what I wanted to bring to you in this episode. The direction that you see things going in. And one other thing I do want to say as well, ever since, I guess you could say, interest rates started rising in 2022, you've had a lot of people shy away from the housing market. And I was pushing out content and telling people, hey, buy a home now. I know that interest rates are high, but if you can afford to buy a home, or higher, I should say 7-8% interest rates. I know interest rates are higher, but if you can afford to buy a home, buy the home now while the market has cooled down and everybody's scared, because when rates start to drop, everybody's going to want to come back. And everybody's not just all the individuals and families. It's also the companies and corporations that are going to be coming back and competing for the same properties. And so you have a lot of people that are waiting for market conditions to change. They're waiting for interest rates to come down. They're waiting for the timing to be just right. And stop waiting for things to get exactly how you think they need to be in order for you to pull the trigger on becoming a homeowner. Nothing's going to be perfect for you to set the stage for you to become a homeowner, because when it is perfect for you, guess what? It's going to be perfect for about 1,000 other people out there who are going to compete for the same group of properties that you all can afford. And then you're going to have some company or corporation that's going to come in, and they're going to be able to pay above what everyone in this group is able to pay for these properties. So if you want to buy a home, do what it takes to get into a home now, or as soon as you're able to. Don't wait until you think conditions can be right. There is going to be more done to affect the quality of your life based on the decisions that you make and the choices that the things that you decide to do to move the needle, rather than the environment around you having a major effect on whether or not you're able to become a homeowner or whether or not you're able to accomplish anything. If you want to be an entrepreneur, it's a lot harder to succeed at entrepreneurship than it is to succeed at home ownership. Just look at the rates of how many businesses fail within the first 5 years, the first 10 years, the first 2 years even. Look at the rate of how many businesses fail versus how many homeowners fail within that same time frame. It's a lot harder to be an entrepreneur, yet you're going to have that fighter's mentality if you want to go out there and crush it in the entrepreneurship space and make it as a self-employed individual. If you want to make it as a homeowner, if you want to be a homeowner, if that's something that's a priority for you that you are determined to accomplish, you're going to have to fight for it. You can't just be passive and wait for the environment to change, wait for interest rates to come down, wait for home prices to drop, wait for the next recession. You can't just be passive. You have to take charge of what it is that you're wanting to accomplish, just like you would with anything else that's worth anything in life. So keep that in mind. Make sure that you're staying tuned in. I'm going to be coming back again on Tuesdays for Home Finance Hacks. Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, live on YouTube. Make sure you tune in, putting out some great information on how you can set yourself up to save thousands and tens of thousands of dollars by going and purchasing that home as well. So tune in. Be back here next Friday as well for another episode of Greatest Asset Community Podcast. Till then, take care. Be blessed, and we'll see you next week.